From today, you'll live with us. We'll make you our housekeeper. Don't you know? I'm Rachel. I live with my husband Nathan, and we have a wonderful relationship that others envy. I thought I had built a good relationship with my in-laws too, but lately, things seem to be getting rocky. I've been hesitating to discuss it with Nathan because I don't want to worry him, so I'm just observing the situation for now. Should we go somewhere on our next day off? Nathan suggested during dinner, and I perked up at the idea. Yes. It's been gloomy with all the rain lately. The forecast is good for our next day off, so I'd love to go somewhere. We got excited discussing where to go on our day off, and after considering various options, we decided to go sightseeing in the morning followed by a spa visit. I was motivated to work hard until then, looking forward to our day off. When the day came, we had everything prepared the day before and were about to leave when Nathan's phone rang. Oh, it's Mom. Hello? It seemed to be a call from my mother-in-law. As I wondered what it was about, Nathan's tone changed. What? I understand. Rachel and I will come right away. Hearing this, I asked Nathan what happened, and he told me his father had collapsed. Nathan and I rushed to the hospital. When we arrived and were about to ask at the reception where to go, we heard my mother-in-law's voice saying, "Oh my. You got here quickly." When we turned around, she was sitting in the waiting room with his father. Nathan and I looked at each other, and when we asked if he was all right, my mother-in-law laughed and said, "Oh, it's just a pulled back." What a surprise. While we were relieved it wasn't serious, Nathan and I sat down, feeling drained. We had rushed over thinking it was an emergency, only to find this casual atmosphere. And we had to cancel our trip for this. I could feel my irritation rising. Looking at Nathan's face, I could tell he was annoyed too. Take us home then. We came here by taxi. I'll take you, but wasn't Father supposed to have collapsed? He collapsed because he couldn't move from the pain. I was so worried, I called a taxi right away. After taking the in-laws home, Nathan and I were discussing whether we should still go on our trip when my mother-in-law overheard us and asked where we were going. When we told her about our plans, she said it would be inconsiderate to go out when Father was suffering from his back pain and told us to cancel. I couldn't understand why she called us inconsiderate in this situation, and my anger was building. It felt like she just wanted to interfere with our plans. Nathan and I exchanged looks again, and as we were about to leave, she asked me to help with housework while we were there. Unable to refuse, I ended up helping my mother-in-law that day. Nathan apologized to me, but since it wasn't his fault, I smiled and said we could go on the trip another time, and we went home after finishing helping my mother-in-law. After getting home, Nathan and I talked about what a whirlwind day it had been, and we ordered delivery for dinner. Unable to contain my frustration about the day, I spoke to Nathan. You know, I couldn't help but think both your mom and dad were being awful today. Nathan seemed to feel the same way, nodding vigorously. I was getting irritated too, thinking they were deliberately trying to mess with us. We vented our frustrations to each other and felt a bit better. Nathan suggested we should try again on our next day off, and I looked forward to that. However, on our next day off, and the one after that, we kept getting calls from his parents with various requests, preventing us from going anywhere. As I was thinking they'd probably contact us again next week too, Nathan sat down next to me on the sofa. I told my parents we'll be unavailable next time because we have plans. So we're definitely going on that trip next time. While I was happy to hear this from Nathan, I wondered if his parents had really accepted it. Knowing Nathan, he would probably push forward with it for my sake even if they didn't approve. but I wanted to avoid any conflict between Nathan and his parents. Plus, I didn't want to add to Nathan's worries. "Are you sure?" I asked Nathan, and he replied with a mischievous smile, "I've been feeling lonely that we haven't had time for just the two of us lately. It's okay to say no sometimes, right?" I was so happy at the thought of finally getting to go on a date with Nathan that I hugged him. However, the night before our next day off, we're coming over, his parents suddenly showed up at our house. When Nathan asked what was going on, they said they thought it would be nice to stay over sometimes and suggested we all go out together tomorrow. When Nathan tried to decline, saying, "I told you we had plans, didn't I?" they insisted we could all go together and asked what our plans were. Nathan sighed awkwardly and explained that we wanted to spend time as a couple since we hadn't had much time together lately, but they insisted on coming along. Well, I want to eat something delicious. And I wanted to go shopping too. Let's go to the department store. That sounds good. I've been wanting a new pillow anyway. They suggested a completely different destination than what we had planned. Nathan tried to refuse, but I could tell his parents wouldn't back down. I reluctantly agreed, and Nathan apologized to me. Honestly, I was furious that they changed our plans to suit their own selfish convenience. I almost said, "If you want to go to the department store, why don't you two go by yourselves?" but I held it back. Instead, I just let out a sigh. "I'm so sorry. Who knows when we'll ever get to go on a nice trip together." "It's okay. And I was thinking, if we can't go on trips on holidays because of your parents, why don't we both take some weekdays off and go then?" "That's a great idea." Nathan and I got excited discussing this in our bedroom, and we decided to go along with his parents' wishes the next day. The next day at the department store, his parents' shopping took surprisingly long. On top of that, once they decided what they wanted, they started pestering Nathan and me to buy it for them. This caught us off guard, and both Nathan and I were troubled. It would be one thing if they wanted inexpensive items, but they were demanding we buy expensive things too. Realizing this might have been their goal all along, I was beyond angry and just felt dumbfounded. What did they think we were? When we firmly refused, saying it was impossible, his parents became upset. We ended up buying them each one item they wanted, but because they couldn't get everything they asked for, they were in a terrible mood by the time we headed home. After dropping his parents off at their house and returning home, Nathan and I collapsed on the sofa, exhausted. What's gotten into them? They were never like this before. I wonder if something happened. Well, at least they're healthy, so let's try to look on the bright side. Although I had strong complaints about his parents, since they were Nathan's parents, I tried to think positively and held back my true feelings, worried that expressing them would trouble Nathan. That day, both Nathan and I went to bed earlier than usual. After that, we kept getting frequent calls from his parents, and Nathan and I had less and less time to spend quietly together. One day, I noticed Nathan looking unwell and suggested going to the hospital, but he refused, saying he was fine. Still worried, I made sure to prepare healthy meals and took over all the housework we used to share. Nathan gave me a weak smile and said sorry, but seeing how strange he was acting, I forced him to go to the hospital. While being examined at the hospital, Nathan suddenly collapsed. I immediately moved to help him up. The doctor gave instructions to the nurses, and the examination room became chaotic. My body was trembling, but all I could do was follow along as Nathan was transported. I could feel my heart pounding and the blood draining from my face. "He'll get better soon, right? He'll be okay, right?" I kept telling myself this over and over. When Nathan regained consciousness after a while, his color seemed a bit better, which was reassuring, but then the doctor recommended he undergo detailed tests. Nathan said it was unnecessary, but I was so worried that I convinced him to take the tests. Looking resigned, he agreed. Because he had collapsed, Nathan was admitted to the hospital and scheduled for detailed tests the next day. I went home once to prepare his change of clothes. I also contacted Nathan's company and explained the situation. The people at his company were very concerned about Nathan, who had a good reputation there, and they kindly told me to tell him not to worry about work and to take his time recovering. I also contacted my workplace and explained the situation. They were understanding and allowed me to take some time off. Then, the detailed tests revealed that Nathan didn't have much time left. When I heard this, my mind went blank and I froze. My heartbeat quickened, and breathing became difficult. My body trembled minutely. I wanted to believe this was just a dream my anxiety was showing me, not reality. The doctor seemed to be continuing to talk about something, but I couldn't hear anything. Nathan remained hospitalized for treatment after that. He seemed to accept his situation surprisingly quickly. They say time heals all wounds, but I wonder if time will help me accept these feelings too. I stayed by Nathan's side every day while he was in the hospital. I explained the situation to both Nathan's and my company's. When explaining, I somehow managed to force out the words I didn't want to say, feeling like my throat was being crushed. The companies showed understanding and gave me time off until things settled down. When I informed his parents about the situation, they rushed to the hospital. Surprisingly, they seemed genuinely worried about Nathan, but when I left the hospital room to buy some snacks, his parents followed me. "What's the name on the house? How much property will there be when he's gone?" I was shocked by his parents' words and couldn't help but glare at them. "Please don't say such unlucky things. He might get better." "What? We're just worried about you." His parents seemed to realize they were being inappropriate and looked awkward. However, when we went to the shop, they put what they wanted to eat in my basket and left without taking out their wallets. I paid with a sigh, having no choice. After that, his parents started coming to the hospital almost every day and gradually began asking for money. They said it was because we're spending money on transportation to visit, and we often have to take time off work. When I told them they didn't need to come every day since I was there, they became indignant, saying they were worried. Seeing this, Nathan apologized to me, but thinking I couldn't burden Nathan anymore, I smiled and told him it was fine. Thinking that fighting with his parents would increase Nathan's burden and might worsen his condition, I tried to meet their demands as much as possible. However, his parents acted like everything was expected, showing no signs of gratitude, making me wonder if they were really Nathan's parents. Then, his parents noticed that I wouldn't refuse in front of Nathan, so they started making their demands when Nathan was present. I thought it was malicious, but wanting to prioritize Nathan's physical and mental health above all else, I painfully smiled and met their demands. "Common sense would dictate that you should offer money before we have to ask," my mother-in-law said. For a moment, I almost became emotional at her words, but I controlled myself and apologized. Their increasingly shameless attitude made my anger reach its peak. At this rate, I felt like I would break down from stress. "I'm sorry, I couldn't be more considerate." "Well, I guess you're just the kind of woman who can't think of such things. We'll overlook it." What kind of common sense did his parents have? I was completely fed up. Even though it was for my husband's sake, I was at my limit trying to suppress my anger that was about to explode. While thinking that I might be allowed to object now, I looked at his parents with cold eyes. Sometime after that, Nathan passed away. Meeting you made my life a great success. Thank you for all the great love and happiness. Those were Nathan's last words. I couldn't get Nathan's final smile out of my head. I couldn't believe he was gone, but when I entered our silent house after the funeral, reality suddenly hit me, and I collapsed crying at the entrance. All the happy days I spent with Nathan kept running through my mind, and such overwhelming grief hit me that I considered following him, thinking it might be easier. Various emotions mixed together, and sometimes I wanted to blame Nathan for leaving me behind. My face was a mess from crying, and when I noticed, it was already dark outside. With my tears dried up, I stumbled into the living room. As I sat on the sofa, memories flooded back again. I could even hear hallucinations of Nathan calling me. Thinking that doing something might help distract me, I decided to sort through the belongings we'd brought back from the hospital. While going through the bag, I found an envelope at the bottom. Wondering what it was, I opened it to find it was a letter from Nathan. Rachel, by the time you read this, I'm probably already gone. I never thought I'd be writing something like this. I'm sorry, I can't be by your side forever. If our positions were reversed, I would be incredibly sad. So you must be sad now too. But I'll always be watching over you. I want you to know you're not alone. I have too much gratitude to write it all down, but thank you for being by my side. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for loving me. I was very happy spending my life with you. Tears kept flowing, and I realized anew that Nathan hadn't wanted to leave. He must have been the most frustrated of all. I had been so focused on myself that I couldn't think about Nathan's feelings. There were what looked like dried water drops on the letter, showing that Nathan had cried while writing it. I have received many things from Nathan. Looking at what I've lost won't help me move forward. I need to be strong, I thought, hugging the letter. Part of the letter also said, I'm sorry my parents caused you trouble, and I learned that he had been worried all along. Thinking that I couldn't make him worry even after he was gone, I slapped both my cheeks, telling myself I had to pull myself together. I talked to Nathan's photo. Thank you for the letter. I'll live strong, so watch over me. Thanks to Nathan's letter, I felt a little more energetic and returned calls to friends and colleagues who had been worried about me. Then I renewed my determination. After a somewhat long break, when I returned to work, I found myself feeling more positive than I expected. When I arrived at work, my colleagues were very concerned, but I thanked them and took care of the accumulated work. During a long weekend, I decided to visit my parents' home. When I arrived, my parents greeted me with smiles, and even without words, I realized how worried they had been. I spent several relaxing days at home to unwind. After telling my parents I would come again, I returned home on the last day of the long weekend to find my house was gone. My house had been demolished. I couldn't believe the scene before me and wondered if I had gone to the wrong place. But that wasn't possible, and my mind went blank. As I stood dumbfounded in front of where my house had been, I heard a familiar voice. Oh, you finally came back. When I turned around, there were my in-laws. In that moment, I realized they were behind this. What is the meaning of this? When I asked while suppressing my rising anger, my father-in-law said with a laugh, from today, you'll live with us. We'll make you our housekeeper. You'll be responsible for our living expenses too. Apparently, my in-laws had demolished my house to make me their housekeeper. My anger peaked, and I confronted them. What have you done? This was Nathan's and my house. Your house might as well have been our house. Since you're coming to live with us now, you don't need it, right? I was so dumbfounded by their unreasonable logic that I was speechless. I was convinced again that these people only thought about themselves. Even though their son had passed away not long ago, did they feel nothing? Though I apologized to Nathan, I despised them. I completely lost any feeling of familial obligation toward my in-laws. At first, I wanted to cherish them because they were my husband's parents, but if they were going to do something this unreasonable, it didn't matter if they were family or strangers. There was no need to be considerate of such people anymore. I had only been complying with them for Nathan's sake. Are you speechless with joy at becoming our housekeeper? I'll be ordering luxurious meals every day. We might even renovate the house, my in-laws said, piling on more as they thought my silence meant I was in shock. How exactly did you manage to demolish it? You shouldn't be able to demolish without permission. Oh, we asked an acquaintance. They've known us for a long time, so they agreed right away. My in-laws said, laughing. I started laughing at their condescending attitude and words. These people didn't know anything. They didn't know they weren't in any position to say such things. What? Have you lost your mind? What's so funny? After I finished laughing, I confronted them with reality. Don't you know? The house you destroyed was my house. You're prepared to take responsibility for destroying it without the owner's permission, right? My in-laws looked confused. They seemed to think the house was in Nathan's name, but Nathan had transferred the title to me while he was in the hospital, considering the worst-case scenario. That can't be. You liar. That's right. It was in our son's name. We'll sue you for defamation. My in-laws wouldn't accept it easily and accused me of lying. So I showed them an image of the house deed. Seeing this, they started to panic. While panicking, they insisted, "You're still our daughter-in-law, so it doesn't matter." However, this too was something Nathan and I had anticipated. We have no relationship anymore. I've submitted a termination of in-law relationship notice. They didn't seem to understand what a termination of in-law relationship notice was, and I could see question marks floating above their heads. When I explained what it meant, they were stunned. So we're strangers now. You don't think this ends here after destroying someone's house without permission, do you? This can't be. My in-laws turned pale upon learning the reality. It turned out my father-in-law had already quit his job, planning to have me take care of them. They were incredibly reckless. Then how are we supposed to manage our living expenses? My father-in-law started panicking, and my mother-in-law glared at me resentfully. Then I revealed one more fact. Oh, since I've lost my place to live, you'll need to move out of your house. Hearing this, my in-laws became indignant. How dare you try to take someone else's house after saying we're strangers, they shouted. My mother-in-law was threatening to sue me. Perhaps thinking they would win and get money if they sued, her attitude became strong again. However, that's not what I meant. Your house is in my name too. Their house was a used property Nathan had purchased, and he had transferred that title to me as well. My in-laws fell silent for a while. When I sighed, my mother-in-law got angry about that. Sighing like that means you're looking down on us. This is defamation. As I was looking at them with cold eyes, wondering what on earth they were talking about, neighbors came out, drawn by the commotion. Nathan and I had good relationships with our neighbors, and they had attended Nathan's funeral. When the neighbors expressed concern and I explained why the house had been demolished, they were appalled. They started criticizing my in-laws one after another, and feeling uncomfortable with the situation, my in-laws fled. Afterward, when I thanked the neighbors, they gave me encouraging words, saying I could rely on them anytime. I realized anew how blessed Nathan and I had been with our connections to people in this area. Having lost my house, I also lost my belongings that were in it, so I went shopping for clothes and other essential items. Since my work computer had also been in the house, I contacted my supervisor and explained the situation. The company said they would prepare another computer for me. The company is also considering pursuing damages against my in-laws through their lawyer. When I apologized for causing trouble, they gave me more encouraging words. This isn't your fault. It must be hard for you, so don't hesitate to ask for help if you need anything. After finishing my shopping, I booked a hotel near the company and planned to stay there until I found a new place to live. However, when I went to work the next day, my supervisor called me in and suggested I stay in the company housing until I found a place, saying hotel living would be too expensive. I gratefully accepted the offer. That night, when I moved to the company housing with my belongings, I was relieved to find it fully equipped with appliances and everything needed for daily life. As I was thinking about my next steps, my phone rang. Looking at the screen, I saw it was my mother-in-law. I answered right away. "Oh, have you decided when you're moving out?" When I started with that, my mother-in-law snapped back. "Don't you understand that this puts us in a difficult situation?" I was exasperated. When I criticized her for having the nerve to say that after arbitrarily demolishing my house, she yelled that such things didn't matter. As I was about to retort, she came out with something outrageous. "If you apologize now, I'll forgive you. From now on, you should provide us with financial support. Even though we're strangers now, you have a debt of gratitude to us for taking care of you, right?" Hearing this, I was stunned. They took care of me? I sighed deeply, wondering what they were talking about. My blood boiled remembering how much patience I had needed dealing with them and how much trouble they had caused us. I was about to refuse, but then I had an idea. "All right. I won't provide financial support, but I will repay my debt of gratitude." At this, my mother-in-law complained about my refusal to provide financial support. "We have no money because my husband quit his job. How do you expect us to live without support?" "That's not my problem. You quit on your own, didn't you?" Seemingly very frustrated, my mother-in-law passed the phone to my father-in-law. "Don't you have any consideration for taking care of your in-laws? Look, as I've said many times, we're strangers now. Actually, I'd like to cut ties completely, but I can't yet because you need to take responsibility for demolishing the house." At this, my father-in-law fell silent, and I could hear my mother-in-law shouting in the background. I couldn't help but laugh, thinking this was karma. While thinking how pathetic they were and how I never wanted to become like them, I heard my mother-in-law's voice again. "Then what do you mean by repaying your debt of gratitude?" "Oh, I'll sell the house you're currently living in or rent it to you. I think $1,000 per month would be reasonable for rent." At this, my mother-in-law fell silent. She must have realized what it meant to live in a house owned by someone else. After that, she hung up the phone, frustrated. After the call, I decided to leave everything to the lawyer for now. I considered demolishing their house too, but Nathan's photos and other things were in that house. I wanted to get those back no matter what. Later, I was introduced to a lawyer through my company, and after explaining the situation, they agreed to take action immediately. Then my mother-in-law called again. "What are you thinking, getting a lawyer involved?" "Oh, I've left everything to the lawyer now, so please refrain from contacting me directly. Goodbye." "Wait a minute. I hung up without further discussion. When they started sending emails, I reported everything to the lawyer, and after that, I stopped receiving contact from my in-laws. However, they were apparently being terrible in their dealings with the lawyer. The lawyer smiled wryly and said it looked like this would take a while. I explained that I had expected things wouldn't go smoothly and was prepared for a long battle, with no intention of backing down. The lawyer encouraged me, saying I didn't need to back down and we would handle this patiently. A few days later, frustrated that they couldn't contact me directly, my in-laws stormed into my workplace. "Where is she?" They burst in with incredible force, and upon finding me, they approached. They looked terrible, wearing dirty clothes with messy hair. My colleagues were disgusted by their appearance. Seeing them heading straight for me, colleagues who knew the situation tried to stop them. My in-laws shook off my colleagues' attempts to stop them and came to me. "We told you to give us money. Don't you feel anything seeing us in this state?" I already refused. Nathan must be crying in heaven, saying, "Was she such a heartless person?" I instantly became furious when they brought up Nathan's name. I couldn't forgive them for using Nathan as a shield to beg for money, even going so far as to storm into my workplace. I slammed my desk. My in-laws flinched. Yes, he must be crying. Crying about what pathetic parents you turned out to be. What did you say? How dare you say that with the face that only took advantage of us for money and things while your son was in the hospital? Nathan did more than enough for you. He was a filial son. You're the ones returning his kindness with spite. When I shouted, my in-laws took a step back. My colleagues were whispering among themselves, and painful stares were directed at my in-laws. As my in-laws were getting flustered and trying to respond, someone approached. "Oh, might these be the people who destroyed our computer?" The department head came walking over with a smile and greeted my in-laws. "Hello. We've heard about you. Currently, we're discussing with our lawyer about compensation for demolishing her house and destroying our computer in the process. You should be receiving a claim for damages soon, so please be aware of that." The department head maintained his smile throughout, but that smile was scary. What is this? Why are we being treated like this? Apparently realizing they were at a disadvantage from the reactions around them and the department head's words, my in-laws quickly retreated from the company. Afterward, the department head and my colleagues expressed their concern, but I apologized for causing trouble. However, they understood my situation and spoke kind words to me. Eventually, the lawyer reported that my in-laws had grudgingly decided to move out. They also agreed to pay substantial damages for arbitrarily demolishing the house, and apparently they were dejected when they went to sign the contract. Later, I was able to successfully retrieve Nathan's photos and other items. However, I couldn't bring myself to live in the house where my in-laws had lived, so I decided to put it up for sale. After that, I started discussions with the housing company we had used before about building another house in the same place where my house had been demolished. I was planning to build a single-story house this time. I was enjoying myself, thinking about maybe getting a dog. However, another incident occurred during these enjoyable days. One day, I got a call from my mother. "Rachel? Well, we have a bit of a problem." Listening to my mother's story, I learned that my in-laws had stormed into my parents' house, demanding, "Your daughter kicked us out of our house. Take responsibility," and were trying to get money from my parents. Hearing this, I immediately prepared to leave and told my mother to call the police for now. However, she said she would call the police only if necessary since my father was currently talking with my in-laws. Worried about my parents, I rushed to my childhood home. When I arrived, I could hear my in-laws' loud voices from inside, so I hurried in. "Hey! What are you doing to my parents?" I forcefully opened the living room door and said this. My in-laws were thin and still looked disheveled. My father-in-law tried to grab me as soon as he saw me, saying it was all my fault. My father stopped him. When I told my mother we should call the police after all, she hesitated. "Why are you hesitating? We need to call." "Well, before I called you, I called your brother. I have one brother." When I heard my mother had contacted my brother, I understood why she was hesitating to call the police. My father knew this too and apparently didn't want to involve the police. Understanding this, I decided to deal with my in-laws for now. According to my in-laws, they had borrowed money to pay the compensation to me and my company, but that wasn't enough, so they borrowed from relatives. When they couldn't repay as promised, they had conflicts with the relatives. Then all their relatives cut ties with them, but even with the ties cut, the debts remained, and they were in serious trouble. When they thought about how they ended up in this situation, they concluded it was my fault. Since they couldn't contact me, they decided to make my parents take responsibility. This is clearly your own doing. I could only be amazed at their story, which had no sympathetic aspects, and I thought these in-laws who could proudly tell such a story were beyond salvation. When I said this, my mother-in-law started yelling me shut up, and finally burst into tears. "If you want us to apologize, we will, so give back the money we paid," she said. When I immediately replied that was impossible, she started crying and pounding the floor. Seeing this, my father sighed, and my mother tilted her head saying, "Oh dear. Won't you help people who are struggling right in front of you?" "You're inhuman," my father-in-law shouted while rubbing my mother-in-law's back, but it wasn't convincing, and we just sighed again. These weren't words that should come from people who had caused so much trouble. "You've got some nerve asking for help after causing so much trouble for me and Nathan." "Of course I won't help you." Just then, we heard the front door open and my brother's voice saying, "I'm home." Hearing my brother's voice, my in-laws looked startled toward the entrance. My mother-in-law must have been fake crying, as I noticed she was now calm, and then my brother appeared. "Oh, so these are the ones who were troubling Rachel and Nathan." My in-laws fell silent when they saw my brother, who had entered with a smile. My brother is well built with a somewhat intimidating face. "You were late. Please take them away," my mother said, and my brother told my in-laws to stand up. My in-laws were confused and agitated. "Who are you? Rachel's brother? Take us where?" "Oh, I heard you were having money troubles, so I'll introduce you to some work." At these words, my in-laws started trembling. They must have been anxious about what kind of work they would be made to do. "No thank you. Don't worry, it's legitimate work. You're not in a position to be picky about jobs, are you? Come on, let's go." "We can't work." "What's with that attitude? You came here asking for money, and you think you can be this demanding." My in-laws reluctantly followed, overwhelmed by my brother's intimidation. "See you later," he said as he took them away. I had expected this would happen when I heard my brother was coming. My brother works for a company that actively employs problematic people, and while they provide work for people like my in-laws, they apparently try to reform them from the ground up with very strict methods. Company housing is provided, but it's several decades old, and some rooms even have leaks. However, since most people have nowhere else to go, there are many who work while crying. I exhaled and made coffee. I made some for my father and mother too, and the three of us talked. Well, his company is famous for being strict, but they apparently don't do anything unreasonable, and many people become decent if they work properly, so it should be fine. It does have a scary image though. But considering what they did to you and Nathan, this seems too lenient. According to my brother's later account, my in-laws cry every day while working. The room assigned to them was apparently one of the worst, with leaks when it rains. The money my in-laws earn goes toward paying off their debts, leaving them with just barely enough to live on. And I learned for the first time from my brother that my father-in-law apparently likes gambling and would use all available money for gambling if he had it. Now he can't even do that, and they've both become quite docile. Meanwhile, I'm looking forward to my new house being built. I'm enjoying my work, and my days are going smoothly. Sometimes I feel lonely when I think about Nathan, but when that happens, I talk to Nathan in my heart, and sometimes I feel like I can hear his responses, making me realize I'm not alone. Supported by my friends, colleagues, and family, I'm living happy days.